You just, okay. Getting around and making all these meetings.
It is because people really don't know about it. If they did, I think they would be very upset.
No, yeah, that's,
This guy is somebody who's been working with him since '09 to '15, and actually testified in that court's property tax
yeah.
reform committee.
Right.
They gave him 25 minutes. After his, he read his testimony to the record for 5 minutes.
I got you.
You know, we have a good group, and Orion, thank you so much for helping us to run the good business here. By the way, right now, I opened the visitor forum, and I have 3 persons would like to speak in front of council. I just remind you, based on the new ordinance, each of you have 3 minutes. But if I feel like some of opinion we need to learn from you, then you maybe get a little bit more. But if don't, then 3 minutes will be enough. Thank you for everybody, cooperate with us, be nice, and try to be friendly. That's my meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council. The first person will be Mr. Bob Watkins. Would you come up here, please, sir? You must be the Haltom High fan, right? Yes. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I thought I was going to burn it the other night. Bob Watkins, Haltom City. I'm going to start by bragging on y'all. In my sometimes not so humble opinion, I believe that y'all as a group, you need my little hearing aid?
Get close to the speaker you can.
Yeah, that makes me have to bend
I
over.
have a problem hearing.
I've got that little hearing aid over there for you.
Okay.
I believe y'all as a group are citizen friendly as any council we've had in years. I don't believe there's anybody up there that's not interested in what the people have to say and what we think. I believe you care. I believe that you believe in open and transparent government. That being said, I can't understand why the Visitors and Citizens Forum is still being held at the beginning of the work session instead of the end of the evening. A little history review will show that said forum was moved by a former mayor that was, again in my opinion, not interested in hearing what the citizens had to say. The forum needs to be moved back where it was for all those years, because I can't say it's happened a lot, but there's things that happen during the meeting that you don't know is going to happen during the meeting, and then you want to get up and address it, and you got to wait 2 weeks, and that doesn't work good. Along the same lines, I don't really care for this 2 or 3 minute proposition for the same reason. It doesn't take me real long to say what I've got to say. I cut to the chase, but I believe some people require a little more time. I think because of this and a couple of other things, it might be time for y'all to have a little workshop on your agendas in general, because one of the things that I've discussed with 1 or 2 of the people on the council and staff is why the city council addresses plats and replats, because actually there's no reason at all that the council should have to review those. If you have a good staff, which we do, and if you have a good planning and zoning commission, which I believe you do, that there's really no need. And I've back for the last year, I've had various and sundry business people, well, a few citizens, but mostly it's been business people that have said, well, I have to go to the planning and zoning, then I have to come in for the first plat and then the final plat, and sometimes you have to set it off. And so first thing you know, something that ought to be cut and dried in a couple of weeks takes longer than that. Thank you.
Ms. Watkins. Ms. Watkins. Sir? When you mentioned about moving the visitor forum for in the beginning of the meeting, I believe 5 years ago, you were the one. Listen to this. I don't forget, you and other council told me why we need to punish the citizen.
No,
Let them
sirree,
sit in
no,
here
sirree, it was not
waiting
me.
to the
It
end.
was not me. Everybody knows.
Okay.
Everybody knows it wasn't me.
I might be getting old, so I forgot, but the main thing, that reason
And
why
don't
we
tell me
moved.
you're old, because you're not as old as I am.
Okay, but thank you, sir. Let we thinking
No,
about that.
I didn't say that.
Because if we wait until down to the end, sometime we stay like 1 a.m. in the morning, you know
I
that.
think you will find, like tonight, out of the 7 regular agenda items, 5 of them are plats or replats. And if you haven't got over the last, I've probably missed a half dozen, maybe a dozen council meetings since 1995. And there's only been certain items, the Fathom thing, when we're gonna put the animal clinic
Okay,
over here, lots of things, but there's not, very seldom are you here real late.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. I got a second person. If I spell your last name wrong, Terry, gotcha. Ma'am?
Terry Griselle.
Roselle and Brenda. Gotcha. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Thank you. Welcome here.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We are here.
Please state your name and
I'm Brenda Groshup.
Yeah.
And Terry Griselle.
yes, ma'am.
We're here from the Friends of the Haltom City Library. And we have made a coloring book, not we have, but
I
the
wanna pass
students
these
at
out.
Haltom High School, then the art club, designed pictures for us for our coloring book. It's called The Landscapes of Haltom City. It has every school in our district, in the Birdville district that's in Haltom City in it, and many of the businesses that are here, and not just here now, but have been here in the past. So that it has some history to it. They're $10 a piece. They make great stocking stuffers or Christmas presents. Everybody needs one. And we have just a few left, and we wanted you to see these. Is there anything else I need to add, Brenda?
No, we just want you to support the library and support Haltom High School art class, because they went and drew all of these pictures for us. And it's all the landscapes of Haltom City. And they did a fantastic job. And it's a fundraiser for our library. So we're asking each one of you to buy 1 or 2 or however many you want to buy. Will make us happy.
How do we pay?
You can come to the library and you can pay up there. You can, if you have cash, you can pay us, because we can't take a card, but we would if we could. We have to strictly do cash.
Yes.
But if you want one and you want to use your card, go to the library. Go to the desk, they have them.
Talk in the mic.
I can't talk in the mic. She's talking in the mic.
She gets nervous.
Can't you tell, Laura?
Miss Allison can't hear you at home. Talk on the mic.
We will appreciate you buying one of our books and supporting Haltom City Public Library and supporting Haltom High School art class. Thank you very much.
Thank you, both of you.
Mr. Mayor,
At this time, I would like to invite Speaker Daniel Bennett.
Mr. Mayor,
Bennett.
may I interrupt just a second?
Yeah. Hang on, sir.
Okay, those are not free for you, so unless you paid for them, give them back.
They paid. Paid up.
She's paid.
I wanted you to look at them. Thumb
Yes.
through them and look at them.
No, I pay. I'll pay, you know.
I did. I did. I paid. I promise.
I like that. Anybody else bring an ATM? Oh, good. Okay, good. Thank you.
Right here, man.
I like this.
Okay, anybody need money here? I pay for you. Who didn't pay or who can pay? Oh my God.
Isn't this fun to have money swapping at a council meeting?
Hey, how often can we do this?
Well, you know,
Now we're even.
the mayor make $50 per meeting, but I spend 100, right? But
Yeah, I'm gonna get change for you
okay,
and bring you back $90.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Sure you don't wanna, enter these books?
No. My wife don't color it, so only me.
Oh, you wanna cover?
Mr. Daniel, Benny, would you come approach me, sir? And go ahead, sir. State your name,
Daniel
please.
Bennett, 408 Pemberton White Settlement. I have to say, I've been to probably 200 council meetings and school board meetings since 2017. I've never seen coloring books sold. I'm hearing you. I'm here this evening for two items. I think they're basically the board items for school districts and also city councils. The first, I'd like to speak to you about a resolution that was passed by the city of Colleyville. As we all know, the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors election is every odd year. And this being an odd year, we're up again. I was a 2017 candidate, and I did receive all of your votes in 2017. I think I came back and thanked you, and I'll thank you again. I'm still honored by that. I have decided, based on the way the antiquated statutory procedures within the property code has not served this board well, or any small entity or small school districts. The way the process works, in case some of those of you who are new, nominations are due by the 15th, and then the chief appraiser assembles a ballot and sends it to all the taxing entities who are able to cast ballots for the board of directors on October 30th. Then you get that ballot, and then you choose whomever you wish to represent your needs. And many times, the boards do not get a chance to vet these people or even meet them. One of the strangest comments I got in 2017 was, "Mr. Bennett, why are you here?" I was there to ask for their votes and introduce myself and see what their needs were and see how we can work through whatever issues you have that you're not being served by the appraisal district. Being a director, I could propose those to Mr. Law. Well, I didn't win. Well, there was anomalies within the procedure that it's in the state code where everybody has to vote in an open meeting. Well, the larger entities, by virtue of size, they can wait. They have more meetings. And so the littler entities cast their ballots, you send them off to the chief appraiser, you do your judiciously, you do your due diligence, and then they get the numbers and then they add them up. And then the larger entities call up Mr. Law and say, "Well, how did Haltom City vote?" Well, there's a camera. I mean, there's minutes. So what TAD does, they assemble these totals. And so they know where to have to proportion out their votes to affect the board. Well, I didn't think that was very fair. So neither did the mayor of Colleyville. He too had a candidate, Jean Shrewsbury, very well qualified lady, very nice lady. But I don't think she really understood there was an election. So she was kind enough to give me her votes, so Colleyville voted for me. I still lost. So to keep this from happening, because it did happen in 2017, the resolution states, and I'd like to talk further about this, but this is the background, that all the entities will vote in the last week of the election. But there's a lot of benefits there. So the candidates have a time to come visit your boards. You have time to reach out to these candidates. You have time to send them questions. How are you going to serve us? It's about representation. That's all this thing is about. And so that's the resolution. I believe I've submitted it to the city, and you have a copy of the resolution. Mr. Law, as my understanding, has to put it out for a vote. It was submitted on the 27th of September, and he must put it to all the bodies for a vote. I'm not sure he's going to do this. It's not in my control. I did everything I could do. And I have actually visited about 54 entities to talk on this very thing. So I have some people who've been helping me understand the limitations of the Central Appraisal District system. And I have found a qualified, an eminently qualified candidate. I wish he could have been here tonight, but he couldn't be. He has his friend in the hospital, had a tube, and whatever. But he's doing better now. The gentleman's name is Gary Lasada. He spent 6 years on the ARB board.
Ms. Burnett, you have
Yes.
1 minute.
Okay. And he has a master in education. He's been an assistant to a superintendent, assistant to a city manager. He understands the property code frontwards and backwards. He actually spent 25 minutes in front of Benton Court's property tax. You can go to the April 27th, 2016, go to the legislative website. He was the 5th person to speak on that panel. And he gave 5 minutes of testimony, which I have here, which I'm going to give to the city secretary for your review. But you can actually watch the video and see the questions that were asked to him by the legislators. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate being here, as always. I think it's a fun place to come.
Thank you, sir. And if we need more and more information, we would like to invite you back here on work session, and we put you on agenda.
Sure.
That means you have a little bit more time to speak due to the fact that we are on and that everybody have 3 minutes.
That would be great.
Thank you.
And I'd like to bring Mr. Lasada so he can actually give you specifics, because he has a lot of tax agents that's been in front of him, real estate agents. He understands for you to get better representation, it's not enough to have a real estate degree.
Yeah.
You need to know the property tax code.
Thank you, sir. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. At this time, anybody in the audience would like to speak in front of council, and would you please come forward? I have seen none, so I close the visitor forum at 6:19. Okay. The next subject will be depth overview presentation by Mark McLean, SEMCO.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Mark McLiney. I'm with Samco Capital Markets. Several new faces on council. It's good to see. I've been representing Haltom City for over 25 years on every bond issue that y'all have done, and it's remarkable where you were, where you've gone, and what your future is going forward, and lots of positive stuff. Y'all are positioned in a great time right now, and we're going to go through this, for a major capital improvement project. You have debt that's falling off quickly, fast, giving you an opportunity to make business decisions that only you and council and your citizens can make. So in preparation for today, Sedona said, let's talk about options for projects, not the actual projects, but options for financing, and how they may affect the city and the taxpayer. So I believe at your dais you have this, and then we also have it, I think it's going to be on the screen. We do. So what we wanted to go through is just start briefly with funding options that cities have for capital improvement projects. And we're not talking about small type projects. We're talking about large capital improvements, whether it's roads, bridges, buildings, major infrastructure that can't be financed short term. So we believe there's really two major options for cities to issue bonds or issue debt. General obligation bonds. General obligation bonds are what so many people consider all debt, but it's not all debt. General obligation bonds are authorized by the voters. So you, as a council, say, well, we think we have these projects and we know we have items, but we want the citizens to have the input. Final say goes to the citizens. And where we're here is we have to separate propositions. So if there's a road project and a building project, you'd have two propositions. You couldn't do road and building. You have to separate it. Otherwise, the Attorney General would consider dual propositions. Once you go to an election, if it's turned down, we cannot fund it, alternative method, for 2 years. You could come back and have another bond election, but if you go with a bond election and it's turned down, you can't say, well, the voters really didn't know what we were doing. We're going to do a certificate of obligation, which is something we're going to talk about next. But you're really closed out of funding that project unless you do another election the next year or the next opportunity. General obligation bonds are secured by ad valorem taxes. And I bring that up because it's really important in today's time. This is outside of the rollback calculations, truth in taxation. If the voters approve it, and again, I have some numbers to go through. We don't know what the size, what ultimately will be, but let's just use a far off example, and it's 10-cent increase. And it's all passed and you issue them, that 10-cent increase is allowed outside of the truth in taxation. And at Senate Bill 2, where you got an 8% increase this year and you have 3.5% going forward, it's outside of that. So you can still have operation and maintenance increases in addition to a tax increase for debt service because the voters approved it. And it's secured by ad valorem taxes. And again, we're not saying a 10-cent increase on anything. I'm just trying to use that as an example. Typically used for general improvements, and we use here street improvements, municipal facilities, rolling stock, could be equipment. When I say rolling stock, fire truck, major expenses like that. We don't use general obligation bonds to fund utility system projects or enterprise. That's something that should be funded by itself, by the utility system, not through voted obligations. The drawback, one of the drawbacks on a bond election is the cost. Typically, and this is going to be similar to your council elections, there's a $15,000 to $30,000 cost of that, regardless of the success. So that's a drawback. Now, for a bond election, we have 2 times a year you can have a bond election, in May and November. If you do a May election, we have to call it by mid-February. If you would do a November election, you have to call it mid-August. And there's, depending when the election date is and what year, there's a certain amount of days prior to the call. But it always tends to be about halfway through August, halfway through February. Cities often use certificates of obligation, which is the next funding method for major improvements. There's not a right of referendum. I'm sorry, there's not a bond election, but there is a right of referendum if a petition is presented to the city council to take it to a project. So in this instance, city council says we want to do a certificate of obligation. Well, we notify the voters through the notice of intention process. Here we do an authorization that says we intend to borrow blank amount of money for the following projects. And just lists them. Not a set amount for each project, just a list of projects. We publish that notice 2 weeks in a row, and approximately 45 days after that first publication, again, how the city council meetings fall, city council could authorize the issuance if no petition is presented. If 5% of the registered voters petition or qualified voters petition, it automatically goes to an election. The credit is the exact same thing. It's ad valorem taxes. Bottom line, it's going to look at the ad valorem tax base of the project. You will see lots of utility projects funded through certificates of obligation, even though the support is, the credit is still taxes. We pay it from a utility system source, but because investors see ad valorem tax base as the strongest credit, it drives the lowest interest rate. So often you'll see, and we have done it here many times, certificates of obligation for utility system projects and then pay for it out of the utility system. They're called self-supporting. My boss, who worked with Haltom City prior to me ever starting here, helped write the Certificate of Obligation Act. It was CO Act of 1971, and it goes back, so often it's accused, and we talk about it in the pros and cons, that it's trying to circumvent the voters because the voters are not getting a direct say. And he used to argue, he said that we had that argument when we were writing this act. That's why we lowered the threshold to only 5%. We can go to the HEB and get 5% of the registered voters to sign a petition saying city council's trying to do it. So he would argue that it wasn't an attempt to circumvent the voters. It was an attempt to make the process smoother and cleaner and faster. So we'll go through those pros and cons, but it wasn't ever meant to be a way around the voters. And that's why the certificate of obligation requires the notice of intention and the long process of notifying and council actions in order to even get there. Pros and cons of requiring a bond election. The biggest pro, and really, when you're comparing it to a certificate of obligation, is you did take it to the voters. The perception, this is the voters' choice. Cons is costly to hold it. If a project is turned down, we've got to wait 2 years to have another, and then a long lead time. Because there's only 2 days for a bond election in a year, we have to really plan it well ahead. A CO, if you said we're ready to go, you can have money here in about 90 days. Again, just pros and cons in how that falls. The pros and cons of a certificate of obligation: it's less costly because of the no election. It's cheaper than issuing revenue bonds and has less restrictive, and that's tying it back to the utility system because it has the tax pledge. We don't have the restrictive covenants that a revenue bond pledge has. It's quicker process to get to the market, and one of the real pros is that you can lump multiple projects together and not put dollar amounts. So if we said using 20 million and we wanted 5 million for roads, 5 million for the police, 5 million for a library, and 5 million for parks. If the project comes in at 4.5 million for parks, you have $500,000 left over. That $500,000 sits there and isn't borrowed. If you do it as a C, and that's in a voted, if you voted it, in a CO, if there's $500,000 available, it can be moved over to the other projects because you said 20 million not to exceed for these projects. So it doesn't say 5 million for each project, it says 20 total, and you all as a council decide. So in a bond election, if you had those 4 propositions and they all pass, if one comes in at 600,000, you can't move money from a different project. So that being able to lump them together is a real advantage. Cons, again, back to less input on voters. And it's not only the vote, the actual election date. When you're doing a bond election, you're going out and having public hearings, public meetings to inform the voters so that on that November day or on that May day, they know what they're voting for. So you're going out and staff is going out to different civic organizations and say, this is what we believe is needed. Not we're voting and you need to vote yes. These are the facts. Now you as a citizen have to make the decision to vote. And that's going to be something, if you do move forward with a bond election, I'm sure the city attorney is going to be very strict on what you as a council can say. With Wayne, we had a long 10 or 15 year battle on an ethics complaint on one of our former bond elections here because one of the brochures put please vote and had an exclamation point on it. And they said that was, the election committee said that was problematic. If we left it with a period, it wasn't a problem. But we said please vote with exclamation point, and the election, the Ethics Commission said that was problematic. And it happened here, and Wayne fought it for 10 years and a lot of time and effort because we didn't do anything wrong. So there's something that would be something you'll be working with them. So that's really the pros and cons on the two main financing methods. And so what we wanted to get to was really, what could you do if you wanted? And these numbers are going to be hard to see up here. And I don't know what I did. I got one up there. They are. So in a snapshot, we want to look where you are now and what we could do going forward if we had some projects. And if you look in the second column on the left, your taxable value, that's your certified value, $2,454,000. I did 1 year of a 3% growth rate, then did no growth thereafter, which is very, very unlikely. Look at the third column from the left. That's your existing debt supported by ad valorem taxes. If we were going to sell bonds and we're looking at your snapshot of where you stand, the rating agency would say that's low debt community because we're paid off in 10 years, we're going to be paid off about 90% of your outstanding debt. So we're in a position, we have $6 million a year of debt service now. In 2 years, it drops to 4, then it drops to 3 and keeps dropping. So the snapshot of how much debt, we typically want to see 50% paid off in 10 years. And in 10 years, you're 90% paid off. That's been because the last few years you've done short-term. We haven't added long-term debt. When you've borrowed, it's been short-term. So what this has allowed you to do is, and I've grabbed numbers out of the air, but I used $35 million. I said we could borrow $35 million or have an election for $35 million and break it into 2 bond sales. $5 million next year. Of course, if you do a bond election, you have to have an successful election in May. But you could sell $5 million next year, follow it up with $30 million the next year. And if you go to the far right-hand column of this, do it maintaining the same tax rate for debt as it is right now. You're currently at 25.2 cents. And although it's very close, the next 3 years we're 25.21, 25.25, 25.24. So 4 thousandths difference from where it is right now. Without much management on that on our part, we would be able to hit that exactly where you are. So what this showed me is we could do $35 million in an election or COs, however you as a council want to do this, without earmarking any new pennies on our tax rate to the debt. Now, why did I split it up between a $5 million next year and then $30 million the following year? We can't do it all in 1 year. If you look at next year's debt is $6,184,000. That's where we are next year. Same where we are next year. Then it drops. So, and my thought was if you want to proceed now, you would do $5 million or $3 million or whatever the number is to do design, architectural work, engineering work, get it all ready so that the following year you can issue it and have money ready to go straight to construction, whatever those projects may be. In my mind, this is very conservative, $35 million. If it got pushed because whatever the projects are larger, I think we could get more without impacting the tax rate. And how do we do that? If you look at the far right-hand column, in 4 years after the second bond issue, it starts dropping. You're at 24 cents and then it goes to 22 cents. Our debt structure on both bond issues are level debt. So if you look at the column, other than the first year on both issues, the annual debt service is roughly the same. It's within a couple $1,000s of each year after the first year. So what that tells me also in our analysis, we're not taking principal and putting it on the back end. We're paying principal every year, each year. Well, if the project needed to be a little bit more, we could probably get a little bit more. Again, things that I've done that are on the conservative side. We've had no growth after 1 year of 3%. So I'm not betting that the appraisal district adds new value. I'm saying it stops. We've used 3.5% and 4.5% interest rate borrowing. If we borrowed right now, we would be sub 3%, closer to 2%. So I'm using very conservative interest rates. Then I'm using level debt without trying to manage the debt so that we are not delaying principal, but without too much trouble and still paying principal each year, we could delay some if we needed more money. So I don't know what the ultimate projects are, the ultimate dollar amount will be, but in a conservative snapshot, without earmarking new pennies towards the debt service, $35 million would be an easy target for the city to hit. So that's kind of a quick overview on these numbers. I'm happy to go into more depth, into more assumptions, but we really wanted to get the ideas into your all's packets, understanding what you have and how you're structured right now. Your snapshot right now, having that debt service drop off so quickly and so dramatically, is setting you up for, a possible major capital improvement projects, whatever route you go, whether you do COs or general obligation bonds. It's in your court to make the business decisions and direct us on how you want to proceed. And that's my quick overview.
Thank you. And Council, you have any question for him? Ms. Marianne? Ms. Brown? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here, Commissioner McCloney. But I want to make sure I'm straight on this existing debt service. That's not our existing total debt. That's what we pay a year to service our debt, correct?
Yes, and it's only on what's supported by ad valorem taxes. Because you have other debt, and that's principal and interest payments, just like on a mortgage. Each month you make a bond or a mortgage payment, some of it's principal, some of it's interest. Under existing debt, that's all the principal and interest scheduled for that year that's supported by ad valorem taxes. You have other bonds that are supported by utility system.
Which would be CO.
Well, many of these are COs, but you have others that are COs and no revenue bonds outstanding, but and some refunding bonds that are supported by the utility system. Items that were issued for the utility system are paid for by the utility system and are not included in that number.
Okay. Do we have any outstanding unsold bonds?
I think we've cleared that. Of the last bond issue, I think we cleared all of that
That's
out.
what I was. I
think that
so.
was the last bond issue, but I'm not 1,000% sure on that.
Okay.
But I think we did clean it out on our last
So
bond issue.
at this time, we have no bonds to sell off.
I will confirm that, Mr. Brown.
Sure. Thank you, sir. One other thing. At this point in time right now, and you might have to get back with me on this, what would the rate be, what would our tax rate be on INS to pay back in 1 year all of our total debt?
Well, I don't think I could even calculate that because in 1 year, we can't pay off. You can only, bonds that are callable, you could pay off. You could make them mature in the next calendar year by calling them. We only have one bond that is callable right now, and we're talking about refunding it later in the council meeting. So you can't take something that's obligated to be paid in 3 years or 5 years and make it be due next year. You legally can't. That being said, and I don't know if this is the direction you're going with that question, a city can have a $2.50 total tax rate, state law. The Attorney General would allow you to have an INS tax rate of $1.50 for bonds that you issue. But there's no way we could say next year's maturities are due this year because they're not callable. We don't have the right to take them from the investor. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's, there is a Attorney General opinion won't let your tax rate be larger than $1.50 for debt service. Total tax rate is $2.50.
Yes, sir. That's what I was getting at, the $1.50 cap, but we're not even close.
No, and I always say this, and I said it earlier, if we propose something like that, we'd be run out of here with pitchforks.
Okay.
What we're talking here is no impact on that, on the INS, if you all move forward on this scope of projects. But the Attorney General would allow up to $1.50 on your tax rate.
Right. Okay.
But I wouldn't recommend that.
Oh, no, and neither would the voters. You think you would be run out,
Yeah.
we would all be run out. So, thank you, Mr.
Sure.
McCliney. Thanks, as always, for you're so informational.
It's always good to be here. This is one of my favorite places.
Well, thank you, sir. We're glad to have you, and privileged to have you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Marion, you have a question? You been here a long time?
I'm confused about basically what you're saying to us. If in our strategic planning, we decide that we need to spend a large amount of money to reconstruct or manage our streets, which are in poor condition, that we have 35 million we could play with to do that without having to raise our tax rate.
You have the ability to do multiple projects, whatever those projects may be, up to 35 plus or minus $1 million without dedicating new pennies towards it. I don't know what projects you all have.
Well, I don't, that's my confusion, is because I don't know what projects we have. I guess I'm wondering, kind of the timing on telling us this. Is this,
Well, and that's,
we don't have anything planned.
no, that's a good point. But and I'm really glad you brought that up, whether you meant to or not. Look at this page, and I'm going to stay at the existing debt. It's up there already. If we don't come to you and say, and Sedona knows this, your administration knows this, but if we don't come in and say, y'all, start thinking about projects, because if you don't, you're going to lose the capacity, and we're not doing our job. So if you look at this page under the existing debt, and these are not going to be exact, but your INS tax rate's currently 25 cents. In 2 years, if you don't replace that debt when it drops, all of a sudden it's going to drop below 20 cents. And then as it goes further down, by 2023, if you don't replace that debt, now you're down to about 12 cents. So then if you have a project, it means you're just going back to where it is right now, you have a 12-cent tax increase on your voters because you went 3 years without doing a project. And now you're coming back and saying, okay, voters, we need to go back to 25 cents. But we were there just 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Well, those voters and those taxpayers remember it going down.
Right.
And now it's just going back to where it was 2 years later, but that is certainly a big tax increase. So it's our job to tell you when you have opportunities, and if we don't tell you there's opportunities, then you don't know when to time projects, because cities always have capital improvement projects that are needed. And you all have to determine what they are, when they are, and if you want to do them.
And Mark, just to interrupt for a second, Ms. Hayward, it is part of your strategic goals that you adopted as a council to replace municipal buildings and infrastructure and that type of thing. So it is in a 5-year plan. Ultimately, it'll be up to the council to decide exactly what gets replaced and when, but it is part of your strategic goals.
Okay.
Yep.
That really helped. I appreciate your information to us and training us better on how to use
one
our
of the
funds.
things, someone asked, we were talking about a refunding, and they said, well, that was a council, and no mention what council it was. Said, that's not a whole lot of money. So, well, our job isn't to decide if it's a whole lot of money. It's your decision to say, yes, that's worth pursuing. But if we don't show you and tell you and give you the opportunities, then we're not doing our job. And so it's the same thing. Here's an opportunity. It is a couple of years away or a year away. Well, it's hard to come up with the projects and make sure everybody's on board without the lead time. And that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
One more question, and Council Susan Saul.
This is really probably directed towards Keith. Can you please give me an example of what we may have done in this type of bond election, what we did with it in the past? Just for an example, so that I can better understand what might be done. I know we talked about improvements to the roads and municipal buildings. I saw that in there. Have those been in this type of bond in the past? What is the most recent? What are the most recent items that we've had in this type of?
The most recent bond proposals that we put out there was for the relocation and reconstruction of Fire Station 3.
Okay.
And we also had a resolution on that election to build a combined municipal facility that would have been City Hall and the Law Enforcement Center together. So those were the two propositions on the last bond election that we had. The fire station passed.
Okay.
And the City Hall Law Enforcement Center didn't pass, and I think we got 46% that were in favor of it, and the opposition won that one.
Okay. Thank you. I
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate that recap.
And I'll just tell you, I think another good example of the bond election in 2010 was extremely extensive. It included replacing municipal buildings, parks, which we just finally issued. You as a council decided to finally issue the last of those bonds this past year. It had street improvements. It had quite a bit. If I recall, it had 9 items on it, I believe,
It had a lot.
up for the voters to vote on. So it can go from, 1 item on there to, we've had an election since I've been here where we had numerous, almost 10 items on there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saul. Council Gay Benzen.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. It was very informative to me. So if I understood you correctly, you said that the election in May you would have to be prepared for by mid-February and November, mid-August.
Yes.
Are those times that we deal with the public? Is that to get the information out to the public or dealing with you?
Well, no, that's actually state law. It's a set amount. I think it's 65 days prior to the election. You have to call it, and you can't call it more than maybe it's 90 days. So it has to fall in a short, small window, and it just turns out to be, and I did not look when the election date is in May to backtrack and say, I just use, typically, because it's the first Tuesday in May, or the first Tuesday in November and the first Saturday in May, and I just used, we've done it enough that we just typically say mid-February and mid-August are the deadlines to call.
Okay.
And if you all start moving forward on one of those, then we will put together a full timetable that shows the window that you have to call it between. And that is state law.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So we're legally bound to that time frame.
If you get past it, then you have to wait
Another
until
two-
August
right.
to do it in the November election.
All right, thank you so much.
Any more questions from council? address council and the people at home or the citizens sitting here. Last meeting, we had a guy speaking about ADA, right? Comply. And I know the last bond election for the city hall, he turned it down. People didn't approve. But they forget about most our facility are old. I mean, some of them 60, 70 years. Even this building here, the water you drink right now, maybe not good for your health. And we keep throwing the money in here to remodel. Sooner or later, we have to have new city hall, new police station, anyway. And the presentation from Mark here really helping us and the citizen at home educate us, you know, why we need the bond election and when we need the CO. If this facility like fire, police department, senior citizen center, and this building, if we don't have a plan, then the pharaoh can come here, fire us. I bet you not cheap, right? Million some dollar. And right now, we have to put our project on the schedule. So the pharaoh will believe that we are trying to improve, comply with the ADA law. That's important. That's why the presentation today, I hope the citizen at home can study and can do some more research on the internet, you know, find out is important. And I can tell you, Ms. Keelan and Rex done very good in this subject. And you have anything to add on, Mr. Farrell?
Yes, sir. What the mayor is referring to for the people at home and the people in the audience is that we recently had a meeting with our ADA compliance officer, and sometimes these older buildings, and not sometimes this one for sure, and a couple other facilities in town, are not ADA compliant. And what we're finding is this parking lot's not ADA compliant, the spaces aren't, the ramps, the restrooms, the hallways. And when you remodel a building of this age, oftentimes, and we do believe it's probably the case in this situation, but remodeling an old building like this sometimes costs just as much or more than just building new. And that's what they were trying to tell us, and that we have to have a plan to get these buildings up to ADA compliant. We should have already been there. And it's just, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to invest that kind of money in the old buildings, or do we want to go forward with new? But that's going to be a decision that the council makes, and together with the voters. But we have to tell you these things, whether they're what we want to hear or not. But that's just the situation we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell, because most of the time when we mention about borrow money, issue the CO, and some people out there running around and say, well, the tax increase again. But look at the population in Haltom City. Roughly right now, I can tell you no less than 50,000 people. If everybody just chunk $10 more or $100 per year, we can build City Hall easily, you know? And I mean, any battlefield, somebody have to sacrifice. We can't satisfy everybody, but make sure you know that. I try to, when I run campaign, and I always focus about replacing the old facility in Haltom City. And 60% of people believe that need to be changed. That's why they vote me in here. So I wish the citizen at home and the people in this audience thinking again, try to support us. Without you, we can accomplish our goal for the next generation, not for me. And some of you, we are too old to enjoy it. But we have to move right now for the future. Thank you. Appreciate your obligation. Thank you. Thank you, Council. Okay, do we have executive session? Oh, Ms. Van Zandt, I'm sorry I didn't see you.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify for myself and for everyone listening. What we learned, is this correct, from the ADA compliant officer that Haltom City now has, that this is no longer just an ADA issue, it's a Department of Justice issue.
That is correct. And for a long time, people had the misunderstanding that anytime we start a project, it has to be ADA compliant, sidewalks or anything, and that's true. But when it comes to public facilities, it's not just when you start it. You're supposed to be ADA compliant, period. And you can be fined, and that's happened all over the state and all over the country, and we had examples of that. And they come in, but what they want is you have a plan. And we're working on that plan as we speak, and we all know about that. But part of that plan is are we going to sink a bunch of money into old buildings, or are we just going to build new? And a lot of that's just going to come down to what you guys decide with the voters.
Thank you, Ms. Fair. Thank you, Council. Any more questions? I see none, and I don't believe we have. Do you have executive session tonight? Yes, but I don't think we have time to do it. So at this time, I will adjourn the work session and come back 5 after 7, please. Thank you. At this time, 7:07, October 14, 2019, I call the meeting in order. At first, I would like to invite our Assistant City Manager, Rick Fell, for invocation and the pledge of allegiance by Council Member Brent Weeks. Please stand.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, help us to have humble hearts as we come before you tonight for ask for your blessings. We just ask that you would protect our first responders, our public works staff, and bless all of our staff and our community and our citizens. We thank you for these servant leaders and the mayor and the city council members. Lord, we just ask that you would live in their hearts and guide their minds as they make decisions that would be what's best for this citizen, and do it in a way that would be pleasing to you. We ask you in all this of you, the ultimate servant leader. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please sit down. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Redfell and Brent Weiss, and welcome everyone back here. Welcome the audience. Welcome everyone at home. Thank you, our council present today and our staff. Okay, the next item will be announcement and events by City Secretary Camacho. Go ahead.
Mayor. The announcements for October 14, 2019 in the public library. They have story times, Tinker Tuesdays, Imagination Station, teen programs, and other library activities, and they're all listed on the library's website. They have special things coming up for the holiday season. There's the Teen Monster Mash Makeup Tutorial, which is Friday, October 18th from 4 to 6. The Halloween Costume Swap, Saturday, October 19th from 1 to 4. The Pumpkin Decorating Contest, the deadline for that is Saturday, October 26th, and that's all ages. The Howling Halloween, which will be held Wednesday, October 30th at 6:30 p.m. And they also have a class for adults, a dance fitness. It's each Monday from 6:30 to 7:30. And they do a Matter of Balance wellness program that are held on Wednesdays from September 18th. They started last month, and they'll finish on November 6th. In community programs, the Recreation Center is doing a Halloween candy drive until the 21st of October. If you donate at least 2 bags of individually wrapped candy to be entered into a drawing, you can win a $50 gift card. Candy donations will go out to help for the annual Haltom Halloween, which will be held on Saturday, October 26th from 2 to 5 at the Rec Center. They'll have a costume contest, bounce houses, games, balloon twisters, and more. And the Haltom City Pee Wee Football will be selling concessions to raise money for new equipment, and the admission is free. The Haltom City Police Department is hosting a Drug Enforcement Association, DEA, National Take Back Day, which allows citizens to properly dispose of prescription drugs that need to be disposed of on Saturday, October 26th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Police Department parking lot located at 5110 Broadway Avenue. The North Tarrant Express Mobility Partners will be closing the westbound Loop 820 frontage road between Haltom Road and Denton Highway this Thursday, October 17th, starting at 9 p.m. The closure is anticipated to remain in effect until the following morning at 5 a.m. North Tarrant Express Mobility Partners will be performing asphalt pavement repairs on this section of frontage road. And that's all our announcements.
Thank you, Ms. Camacho. The next one, I would like to invite Assistant Chief Dr. Knapp for the presentation of Firefighter Veterans Recognition. Go ahead.
Council and Mr. City Manager, several months ago, the Senior Citizen Center approached us about recognizing our veterans, military veterans, who are members of the fire department. And tonight we have 3 that are on the department. One who could be able to be here tonight, his Fire Department Lieutenant Chris Anderson, who is in the United States Navy as a CB. The other one is one of our new members, is Paul Briscoe, who was also in the Navy, I believe, as a combat medic assigned to the Marine Corps. And the third is Joe Brewer, Lieutenant Joe Brewer, who's been with the department almost 20 years. He was a Army Ranger and gone in the drug wars in Colombia. He's been in Afghanistan as a security detail to the President Hamid Karzai of Afghanistan and in Iraq. So he's been all over the place. So it's fitting that the city recognizes these people. So if Lieutenant Anderson, if you would come up, please.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is first on our scenes, first on our hearts. Vitus salutes Chris Anderson for duty that you put on your uniform, that you put your life on the line for our safety and peace of mind. Vitus honors you for your selfless bravery, unwavering dedication, and extraordinary service.
As you know, the presentation for the veteran is very important to all of us, especially as long as I am a mayor. If you have any friend, any citizen you know, a veteran from military, PD, fire department, pass away, you know, everybody have to go with God someday. Would you please give us a call? I will be there. And I try to make our best to be there for the family. Please let us know. I believe 2 months ago I present one of the mayor recognition for certificate for the lady 100 years old. And she, man, I don't know I can live 80 or not, but she just, I couldn't describe. She's so proud for 100 years old. She must have done something good in her life, so God give her a good friend and some of us here. By the way, something like that. I think the family appreciate the elect official to share the joy or the sadness moment with the family. Thank you. Okay, the next one will be a report, financial report, right, Ms. Fong? Anytime I see you is money.
Mayor and the City Council, it's a pleasure to present to you the quarterly investment report. Let's see. Okay. Can't get to it.
Keep going.
No,
you have
it's
5
not
minutes
there.
to do it. See?
It's not there. Okay, while we're waiting, I just want to report that we have a great investment report for you. And the reason I said it's great because it's really, the numbers are beautiful. That's what I would like to say. Okay. At the end of the quarter, you can see that we have about $66.2 million invested, and the unrealized gain is smaller. That is to say our portfolio worth more in terms of interest. And then, oops, right here. And our weighted average maturity is about 340 days. We can invest up to 2 years, okay? And then the interest rate, for the portfolio is about 2%. And if you times 2% with 66, you know, it's more than $1.2 million a year in interest. And our benchmark is 6-month Treasury yield, which is about 1.8%. And so you can see that, looking at the numbers, it looks pretty good. Okay, looking at the allocation, what we are invested in, 44% is agency. Those are federal agency, like Federal Home Loan Banks, Fannie Mae, like that. And then the next major item is CDs. We have about $8.3 million, which is about 13%. Investment pool, $12.6 million, which is about 19%. And municipal security, about $8 million, 12%. The rest are in cash. So make up the $66 million. Okay, looking about the maturity, we can invest up to 3 years. You can see that a lot of these are within 1 to 30 days. And then a little bit for the rest, and then 1 to 2 years and 2 to 3 years. And comparing to the last quarter is pretty much spread evenly here. Okay, this is another interesting thing that I'm showing you. I started doing this once, since the interest rate is kind of inverse. That is to say, if you invest in 1 month, you get 1.9%. If you invest in 3 years, it's less. Usually, it's supposed to be the longer you invest, the higher the interest rate. But that is not the situation. Okay, so you can see that the interest rate is inverse. That's what we call it. So it's make it a little bit difficult to invest, and try to do the best we can. But we are doing pretty good in that. All right, looking at the gross domestic product, that is how much the economy is, good or not. I put down the quarter percent here. The second quarter is 2%, and I think I put it wrong here, whatever. The first quarter is 3.1, so you can see that we go down a little bit, and we don't have the numbers for the third quarter yet. Okay, looking about the competency level, we are at about 125 index number, and that is to say most of the consumer, they are still have a high competency in the economy of the country here. Okay, looking at the locally, Haltom City unemployment rate, we can see that Haltom City is 3.1% at the end of July, and then the nationally is 3.7. So we are doing a little bit better than the national. So this is a snapshot of the investment report. Are there any questions?
Any question from council? I think you done a good job again. Nobody asked you a question. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you very
Fong.
much.
Okay. The next will be consent agenda. Council, you have anything to anymore? Mr. Prenguis, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to have on the consent agenda, I'd like to move item 3, 4, and 5 to the regular agenda for further discussion.
Okay, 3, 4, and 5 to regular agenda. Okay, any more? None? Okay, at this time we have item 2 and 6 to be consent agenda, and if you don't have any, you have any questions? If you don't have questions, let both items ready for motion. Ms. Brandwees.
For item 2 and 6 on the consent agenda, I make a motion we approve.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Lynn Thompson?
Mayor, that would be for a second.
I got a second now. Everybody register for a vote. If you don't have any question, go ahead. Okay, both item number 2 and number 6 are not unanimous approved with the absence of Council Walter Crowe. He have the business trouble today, so he can be here. By the way, at this time, I will go to regular agenda since Councilman Gui want to move the 3, 4, and 5 to regular agenda. And in the order, I will call number 3 on regular agenda. On the second reading, Mr. Bachelor. Go ahead. See the item 3, man.
So this was tabled at the last council meeting, and I received some criteria from Council Lady Thompson today. Do you want to read that, Lynn?
In reviewing and due to the situation that we have in our city, which number one, we do not have employees to monitor food trucks. We do not have that in our current budget year. So I have reviewed and looked at several things as to how we can specifically allow the food truck for this special event center. And number one, the food truck request will only apply to the event center. The owner of a planned development will be held responsible for all required documentation, licensing required by state, county, and city. Food trucks will be used for individual events and only allowed to operate during event hours at the location 5230 Denton Highway, Suites 60 and 80. Only 2 food trucks will be allowed at a specific event. The food trucks will be located in the most eastern section of the paved parking lot behind the building, only during the operation of event. The truck operator will provide letter of permission required from the host business for each event. Menu of food items to be sold will be given as well. Food truck operator owner must meet all city, county, and state regulations for food, tax reporting, and insurance. Must maintain a good standing status with the state. All licensing permits must be predominantly displayed. Food truck operator and or employees must have certified food manager certification or accredited food handlers cards as required. Food truck operator owner must prepare all food in truck operations or at a commissary. The food truck operator must also provide the most current of all license inspections indicating the location and facility use of central preparation kitchen. Otherwise, no food prepared from outside source allowed to be sold or served. The food truck operator owner must contain and secure all waste products produced during operation. Any waste should be disposed of by the operator owner outside of Haltom City following specific regulations by state, county, and city. The city will not be responsible for grease, oil, waste receptacles. Food truck operator will be subject to changes to city requirements and inspections at any time. The food truck will provide their own generators and will meet safety codes outlined by fire department. The equipment for cooling, heating, and holding food capacities shall be sufficient in number and capacity to provide temperatures as specified by state, city, and county. Manual warewashing shall consist of a 3-compartment sink for manual washing, rinsing, and sanitizing equipment and utensils based on requirements of state, county, and city. The sink compartment shall be large enough to accommodate immersion of the largest equipment and utensils used during operation. At least one sink shall be available for convenient use by employees as specified by state, city, and county, and that would be for hand washing. Mobile water system materials designed and operation will meet requirements of state, county, and city requirements. A mobile food unit's tank inlet shall be provided with a hose connection of its size or type that will prevent its use for any other service. Fill hose and water hold tank shall be labeled as portable water. Should alcoholic beverages be served, an off-duty Haltom City police officer will be required to be present during the event. The police officer will remain until alcohol has been completely stored or handled appropriately. This service will be paid for by the event center and/or individuals requiring alcohol for special event.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. And by the way, Mr. Bachelor is the owner here today.
Owners' representatives are here. Yes, sir.
Because in this rule regulation apply for the owner, so would you please come up here, sir? Or the council have a question? Welcome to the meeting, gentlemen, and would you state your name, please?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. James Pliska, Pliska Consulting for Mr. Ron Sturgeon. Unfortunately, Mr. Sturgeon is out of town, but at this time I'd like to introduce Mr. Jim Eaton of Ron Sturgeon Properties. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Would you state your name, please?
Jim Eaton,
Thank you.
Ron Sturgeon
I
Real
appreciate
Estate.
that. And council, you have any question for the owner and the consultant? Ms. Gui, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Gentlemen, based on what you just heard, is that something y'all would be willing to comply with?
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say yes. It's all.
Yeah. It seems to read like most of the ordinances that I've seen that City of Arlington, City of Fort Worth, even in Portland, Oregon, they're very similar. Those are just standard health codes for a mobile service facility. As long as this will be put into the ordinance, correct? That we receive a copy of it.
Ms. Lynn Thompson?
It will be in with your plan development. This will be part of that, and we'll go with that. So it's not a citywide ordinance. This will be specifically for this use.
As we stated earlier in the other hearing, when we had the public hearing, plan development in this particular area is a perfect example for the city to try out this genre of new type of food service. So we agree with that.
Thank you, Ms. Council Susan Saul.
Yes, and I'm not sure who to direct this question to, maybe Glenna. I know that the high school, when they have the car shows there, they have food trucks there. Are they required to abide by this list of requirements as well?
The majority of what's on that list are state and county regulations. So yes, they do have to abide by them currently.
Okay, thank you.
Any more question for consultant and the owner? I see none. And Mr. Hillier, go ahead, ma'am.
Well, my subject is not about food trucks. My subject has to do with auto repair services. I have a long list too, so I'll try to read most of it off. I support the zoning change to plan development to some degree. I mean, it already is plan development, and I can support the catering and the events. I'm kind of mixed on the food trucks, but auto repair, I'm absolutely against that. Over the last couple weeks, I've interviewed several shop owners, and I've monitored others, and there are some concerns that I noticed in that monitoring and interviews that I would like for the council to consider. Number one, as stated before, the planned development zoning stays with the property, not the owner. So should this owner decide to sell the property because it continues to produce less than expected, as he stated at the first hearing, the new owner may or may not be aware of or respect the restrictions listed in Exhibit A. Number two, the saturation point for this type of service is overdone. The area between 820 and Watauga Road has 21 automobile service businesses. 5 of those are in Watauga. The other 16 are in Haltom City area. And of those 16, 6 of them are auto repair. Basically, it would be a shame to let this area morph into a copy of Belknap and 28th. Number 3, there are several types of auto fluids, tires, and batteries on the premises. It's possible the frequency of the collection of these items could result in outside storage or in safety hazards if stored inside. In interviewing the shop owners, they indicate that the cost of the disposal services is so high that they will collect these materials to the maximum they can accommodate in their shop before they call the collection services to have those things pulled from their premises. Number 4, just as a business owner, as I talked with them, as a matter of growing business and earning a profit, the tenant will not be able or be willing to turn away business. Per the shop owners, vehicles in various states of repair will necessarily be parked outside. That's just the nature of the business. So a scenario of if they have 4 bays and they're all occupied and a new customer comes, the owner has to make a decision. How do I repair? Because I'm full. Now, Exhibit A says that they can repair outside as long as it's no longer than 3 hours. And the owner has a method to calculate how long this service may take. But once you get into it, you never really know. So they may decide that it can't be done within 3 hours. So then they have a decision. Do they move a car that's in the bay in a holding pattern outside and park it, or do they turn away the customer? They're not going to turn away the customer. They're going to move a car outside. And that could domino so that eventually all the bays have been moved outside and new customers coming in. Now, also in Exhibit A, automobiles cannot be parked outside for more than 24 hours. However, notice that in Exhibit A, there is an option that would allow that not to be the case if there is a screening device of some sort. So if they build some kind of little screened fence around it, they can leave that car for multiple days or hours or however long they need to do it. One location that I monitored had, for several days in a row, had about 50% of their parking lot, a minimum of 50%, it could have been higher, of cars that were non-roadworthy vehicles. For instance, one had a registration, the last registration was 2011, and I saw 17s and 15s. So those cars have been not roadworthy for quite some time. Another site that I observed had a lot that stacked 3 deep with cars that were disabled or wrecked or for whatever, but I passed them every Sunday going to church. So those cars sat there for a long time outside. In fact, they even parked across the street at a vacant lots land because they didn't have room on their own. So now, in thinking about the event center, in going through that process, a lot of times the event centers that I've seen, people will use the back door because there's a big wide open space back there They will use the back door too as they mill around, and I don't know where the food trucks would be parked, but I'm assuming not on Denton Highway side. So they'll be milling around, and as they come out, they're going to see automobile repair shop open and going. Another thing is that when I checked the schematics, the wall between the shop and the spa is wood framing with sheetrock. So when you think about that, here's someone in the spa, in the salon, having a nice massage, and through that wall they can hear engine noises from the cars that are being worked on. They might even hear the impact wrenches and things that are used as tools, and also fumes could possibly seep through. So overall, I think that an auto repair shop should not be attached to other businesses such as this. It needs to be a standalone building. The repair center won't be closed on Saturday. It didn't say that it would not be open on Sunday. One of the other locations by this applicant said that typically it's not, but it could be, and from my monitoring, it is open every Sunday. So I would expect that this would be open Saturday and Sundays when most of the events will be taking place. I guess basically I have a whole bunch of other stuff and some photos and things like that, but basically I just hope you would consider that this is not the right place for an auto repair center, and I can't support that particular use on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion and Council Van Zandt.
Yes, my question was, just clarify for me, I thought at the last meeting that they had said that that was going to be an auto accessory store, and there was no bay, there would be no bays in there.
That is correct. What was discussed at the public hearing was the physical characteristics of this particular suite of the building. The height is not sufficient to have a lift. A lift is required for the removal of any sort of fluids. So oil changes would not be, or transmission changes, or any sort of heavy auto repair could not take place. The physical characteristics of the structure itself would dictate that. Now, as far as operations of businesses, this is a facility to be leased by a property owner to a leasee. Those restrictions were taken from your existing zoning ordinance in the C3, C4 districts, where it is clearly defined the limitations placed on automotive repair. We wanted to make sure that those limitations were taken directly from your zoning ordinance, your current zoning ordinance, in those districts where auto repair is allowed or available through the conditional use permit process. Plan development is very similar to a conditional use permit process in that you as council can place limitations on that use, basically. That's why we felt like in a plan development. Now, we came forward with the auto accessory use specifically because a leasee did come to the city at one point. There was some confusion, and they were not allowed to operate in PDC2 according to what was they expressed to city staff. So we just wanted to further clarify that use with the council and with this PD, that the site itself is conducive only for auto accessory installation or auto accessory sales. No heavy auto repair can be performed at that site. In addition, with the event center, yes, we do want an outdoor atmosphere and genre for this facility because it's next to a major park facility with the city. In addition, we have a natural area that's currently behind the facility that's part of the lot. That's why we wanted to include that in the plan development, so that we do have that calming outdoor atmosphere where you can go have barbecue and a beer if you want. You know, you mentioned the alcohol restrictions, which are good. But at the same time, we do not want junk cars to be visible during a special event. We were just here to clarify using what is in the existing ordinance, which is C3, light automobile, it's automobile repair, it's automobile and light truck repair is what that is. It can't be the heavy type because the facility is just not conducive for that. In addition, you will not see this activity from Denton Highway. As we noted before during the public hearing, that the L-shaped structure of the perimeter of the building does not allow for any visibility. And I drive by that site every day, and I even try to look for that rear area, and you cannot see it anywhere from 377. So yes, it would not be like some other facilities that you've been describing, which are allowed uses or permitted uses in an industrial area. Sturgeon Real Estate does not want that with this venue at this proposed facility. But as you discussed, which is a good point, if the facility is ever sold, they may not have the same care of Haltom City that Mr. Sturgeon does. He's from Haltom City originally. He has a lot of properties in Haltom City, and he really loves doing business in Haltom City. That's why he took this facility and put so much into it. But at the same time, if it is sold, we wanted to make sure that those restrictions were in place with this PD as it is already spelled out in your ordinance in the other districts. So that is why we included those restrictions in there. Not to try to conform the facility to fit into those restrictions, but to make sure that these restrictions prevent that ever occurring at the site. If you wish to beef them up, now's the time to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Wednesday, you done? Thank you, Mr. Marion Hill.
At the moment, the application specifically says automobile and light truck repair shop. The definition that you just went through and the examples that you just talked about have a limiting effect. As this is written, it does not have a limiting effect. It could be heavier repair. And even though there are no facilities to allow a lift or large jacks, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to do a lot of the people at home do their own cars, their oil changes and their transmission repairs by going underneath the car. They don't have a jack to lift it up. So this does not limit the ability to do that type of work. The way this is written, the application is written, it would allow that type of work to happen. And one of the properties that I monitored very closely was a Sturgeon property as well. And just based on that is enough for me to decide this would not be a good place for the auto repair.
We took the permitted uses from your existing permitted use table to try to fit into this category, and that was taken from the permitted use table. If you look at the definition in the Section 28 of the ordinance, it does relate to automotive and light truck repair. And I don't have it in front of me, but I'm fairly certain that that's why we didn't want to use that full definition, and that's why we placed the restrictions with that to narrow that focus, or to put more focus on the lighter type of automotive product that we want for this facility. The next use that is listed in your permitted use matrix, I believe, is auto parts dealer with accessory installation. That is not heavy enough for what we wanted with the auto accessory issue. So it's kind of a balancing act. If you wanted to clarify in the PD, I think the attorney will tell you that you can at this particular juncture.
You know, when I come Haltom City 4 years ago, and right now I walk around like North Richland Hill, Keller, and Roanoke, and I look back on our city, pretty sad, but I don't know what solution we have to get to make our city look like that, because we have so many auto repair, If you call 377 at the Main Street, you can take your friend Walker out there because you can smell oil, gasoline, and noise and hydraulic, And I wish we can come up with some solution like on auto repair will be one side of the city, make our city better, I don't try to against auto repair here, but because our city already were that way, and previous council and many previous council have been approved for many business on Denton Highway. Now we only try to ask the people uptown, when you come here, please don't open any more auto repair, Our city look bad enough, and I don't know, I don't have magic stick to make our city look like Roanoke or Keller, but council understand, some of the zoning allow them like C3, C2, they can open auto repair, but restriction is there, but actually our budget don't have enough to hire the code enforcement. And that's what next year we need to look in at. At least we have 3 more code enforcement, because I tell you one thing, I know many business come in this council, promise I would do this, do that, but turn around, they did not. I don't say it 100%, they did bad, but at least 80% did not comply or promise, keep their promise. Council, if you don't have any more comment or question, you have any more, Ms. Hilliard?
I did. I wanted to ask Ms. Batchelor, Mr. Pliska has indicated several times that we have, that they've tried to follow the rules that we already have in place. Do we have the leeway legally to not necessarily, just because we have it listed this way and they do too, we don't have to necessarily still allow them to do this function? Is that true or not true?
Well, they're seeking to get this use placed on the PD. And I just wanted to clarify that they're a PD C2, which means they're allowed all the C2 uses, which auto parts and accessory sales without a machine shop is a permitted use in C2, which Mr. Pliska had mentioned, but they're seeking a little bit more than just the parts and accessory sales, which we don't have a niche for that other than the light auto and truck repair.
Okay, the fact that this particular application doesn't specify accessories, it specifies repair shop, which is different. If we leave this like this and approve it, then they can actually reach out further than accessories. In the public hearing, that was just a suggestion that was thrown out there, that instead of repair, that it be accessories. But there was nothing formal about that, and this document still doesn't make that formal, that it would just be accessories and not auto repair.
Correct, and if they wanted to do a service like Capit on Denton Highway, that's specialized in just parts and sales of that nature, it's a permitted use.
But this would have to be changed in order to do that. We can't leave it like it is, I'm saying.
The way it is
asking.
currently, you're allowing for the automotive repair as
Right.
you understand it, yes.
Yes, so to approve this, we're giving them carte blanche with auto repair. Otherwise, they need to come back with a modified, or can we amend it to say accessories without having them?
You don't have
come
to do
back?
that, it's already allowed in C2.
Right, so we can just say that they can't have auto repair shop there. And then if they do the accessories, they're within their rights to do that.
Yes, they're allowed by
Currently.
right to do the auto accessory sales.
Okay, okay, that helps clarify that.
Thank you, ma'am, and Council Brand Weiss.
Hey, Glenna. So we can just say repair in this, the definition of repair in this PD is light truck accessory installation only.
Well, but that's the way it's
I know
drafted.
it's C2, but I'm just
No,
saying.
the
we're
repair
trying to
part.
Keep it from doing Ms. Hilliard's trying to keep it from doing oil changes and stuff of that nature.
Oil changes and tires and things like that are a separate classification.
That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay.
So in making the motion, basically, we would just have to say that we eliminate the auto repair shop designation. That would still allow them to do the accessories, but it would not allow them to do the repairs, expand into the repairs that we're talking about, the oil changes, the transmission, the tires, the whatever it is that you do in repair shops. They would only be able to do the accessories. If we put, in making a motion to accept this, that they would need to follow the rules that Councilmember Thompson discussed, which they've already discussed that, and that they would be able to do the accessories, and we would just eliminate the auto repair shop function from the motion, in the motion.
We would
Correct?
agree to that.
Correct? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Council Brent Weiss.
Brent, would you?
Okay, other council, you have any more comment or question? No? At this time, it's ready for motion. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. In the matter of item number 3, ordinance O-2019, let me get this to where I don't have my glasses, -025-15, also as Z-009-19. I make a motion that we approve with the following amendments that were discussed tonight, which is the letter read from Lynn Thompson about the stipulations for the food trucks, as well as removing the auto repair shop from allowed uses on second reading.
Thank you, Councilman Wee. And Council Susan Salt.
I second that.
We got a second. You have any more question? If you don't, go ahead. Ready for register your vote. Okay, item number 3, unanimous approved by 6-0. Thank you. And now to number 4, resolution number R.2019-025-03. And
That's me, Mayor. That's me.
present-
Mayor and Council, as you'll recall, on September 9th, you approved the renewal of 2 contracts with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott. One of those contracts is for the collection of delinquent taxes. The other one is for the collection of delinquent court fines and fees. When their attorneys prepared those documents, they were under the impression that we were going to approve those contracts in August at the last meeting. That got pushed to September 9th. So there was some wording missing from those contracts that went into effect September 1st. Basically what that is, it's a legal requirement now that came out of the last legislative session for a notice and some finding requirements. So basically what we added to this was we posted the required notice, and we found the following 3 things to be true. There's a substantial need for legal services. The legal services cannot be adequately performed by the attorneys and supporting personnel of the city, and the legal services cannot reasonably be obtained from attorneys in private practice under a contract providing only for the payment of hourly fees without regard to the outcome of the matter because of the nature of the matter for which the services will be obtained, or because the city does not have funds to pay the estimated amounts required under a contract providing only for the payment of hourly fees. So that notice and those findings have been added to this contract, and that's the only addition.
Okay, Councilman Marianne Hiller.
I don't have an objection or anything to this, but just for our information on 4 and 5, I don't know that you can share that information with me, but I'm interested in how the collection fee that this company assesses is calculated for our citizen. Now, I realize that our citizen has not paid a fine or a fee or their taxes as they should have, and this company has to pursue them to get that money. But I'm very interested in, as it's stated, that any fine, any cost associated with collecting that money would be charged also to that citizen. How's that calculated? Is it like the percentage of whatever their fine was or fee or their
Yes,
debt?
Sedona, can you speak to that? I know it's different for the courts than it is for delinquent taxes. But yes, ma'am, and that's one of the reasons the legislature added this, was that we have to basically find that it's more efficient for not only us and cheaper for us, but also for the person who's delinquent, than to pay them an hourly rate, which would be substantially higher.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, and I too would have to research what the exact fine and fee percentage are for those particular collections. I'll use court as an example. If it's a 30% fee that's billed back to the payer, then that percent, maybe 30% of the total, would be added on to that original fee. I know it's handled the same exact way. I just have to get you those exact percentages and numbers, because normally there's limitations to those as well.
Well, okay, so it's based on a percentage of whatever the debt is that they collect, and not based on the hours and the time that they put into collecting it, but a percentage of the debt.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's and I agree, it's cheaper for them to do it than us. I don't have a problem with that. But I just kind of wondered what our citizens end up, how hard does it hit them? And sometimes if they knew that, they wouldn't let it go to collections, because they'd rather not have to pay that fee.
Sure.
But do you think, is 30% just out of the air, just a figure to throw out, or is that actually what
No.
they charge?
I believe it's 20%, and their fees did not change from the renewal in the contract. The only thing that changed in the renewal of the contract is we went from a 3-year renewal to a 5-year renewal, but we still have the 30-day opt-out period. So really nothing changed. They're charging the same fees that they've been charging since 2016 for both contracts.
And it's like 20% of the debt.
Yes, ma'am. If I recall from 2016, I believe it's 20%.
Okay.
They were a little bit, one of the reasons that we changed to Purdue Brandon Fielder, where they charged less than the previous firm that we had working on them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
But we will get you the exact.
Any more questions?
I'm working on it.
Ms. Brand, any more questions? Okay, if both of you, all of us agree with the Sedona and city manager about explanation, and I believe item number 4, number 5, we can make one motion, right? No. We have to separate. Okay. Then at this time, I would like to let item number 4 ready for motion. Ms. Haley?
Yes, I move that we ratify and reapprove the contract with Purdue, Brandon Fielder, Collins, and Mott for the collection of delinquent government receivables.
Thank you, ma'am. And Ms. Linda Thompson?
Mayor, that would be for a second.
Okay, we got a second. You have any more questions? If you don't, go ahead and register your vote, please. The item number 4, unanimous, approved by 6-0. Thank you. And now we move to item number 5, resolution number R-2019.024.03. And Ms. Lynn, are you taking care of this too? Yes, sir. Okay.
Mayor,
at
it's the
this
same
time,
situation.
Yeah. Mr. Marion Healy?
Yes, I move that we adopt resolution R 2019 I'm sorry. I move that we adopt resolution number R 2019-24-03 for the collection of delinquent taxes.
Thank you, ma'am. And Council Lynn Thompson?
That would be for a second.
We got
Mayor.
a second, and any question? No? Go ahead, register your vote, please. And item number 5, unanimous, Ms. Van Zandt? You yes? Thank you, unanimous, approved. Thank you, and now we move to item number 7, refund bonds. Ms. Sedona, oh, you?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Mark McCliney with Samco Capital Markets. I believe in your packet you have a summary I don't know if it's on the board. From time to time, we have opportunities to refinance your outstanding obligations. If you look at the potential refunding, the second page, we have the certificates of obligation series 2010 that are available to be called from the investor as of February 1st, 2020. We have to do it within a 90-day window under tax law to issue them as tax-exempt bonds. You want me to hit- Thank you. Oh, I made copies anyway.
Oh, it's just a playbook book.
In the book, yeah.
That's what Mr. You were first given that.
If you turn just to the second page, we have the Series 2010 Certificates of Obligation with amount still outstanding of $2,195,000. The interest rate on those certificates of obligation are 4%, and we can take them from the investor within a 90-day window of February 1st, 2020. We don't want to come to you November or December within that 90-day window with the first opportunity to look at this and take action. So we want to brief you about the opportunity. If we come back and do this, we believe we can generate, roughly speaking, $184,000 worth of savings on the existing bonds. If you look at the bottom box on the left, you have prior debt service. That's the annual debt service on these obligations if you do nothing. Then we have refunding debt service, which is where we think we could sell these refunding bonds. And then you have a savings column. Roughly speaking, we can generate about $20,000 a year of savings over the next 10 years. We show it present value because the Attorney General, when we get approval, wants to know what those dollars are in today's numbers. And in those numbers, we think it's about $166,000. The summary on the bottom right, par amount of bonds that we are refunding is $2,195,000. We would refund them right now, depending how the market is, with approximately $2,155,000. The average coupon of the old bonds is 4%. We believe we could get this done sub 2%. We sold bonds. We're getting bids tomorrow on a very like deal. We've already received a couple bids, and it was 182. So I think we're conservative here. That generates roughly the $184,000. And then in that green box, it says percent savings, 7.74%. We use a benchmark when it's larger than 4%. We believe it's worth pursuing. So what we're asking today is to allow us to go out and bid these obligations. If we can get savings that are sufficient, we'll be back in December with an ordinance authorizing a new issuance. The ordinance will authorize a new issuance and replace the existing, so we're not having two bond issues outstanding. So the new bonds will come in just like refinancing a house. You replace it, you use the bond proceeds or the mortgage, the new mortgage, to pay off the old one, and you have lower payments. We're not extending the debt, we're only reducing the interest rate. And we'd like permission to proceed on that and be back in later this year, this calendar year, to bring final results. If the final results are sufficient, in theory, you would authorize it.
Thank you, Councilman here.
I had a note to ask about, does that extend the number of years? Basically, when you refinance, like your example of a mortgage, you may now owe 10 years, but when you refinance, you owe 15. Does that do the same thing here? Because you said we wouldn't be extending the time. So whatever the the maturity date is now, would still be the maturity date of our refinanced debt?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Okay.
we are not extending it at all.
Okay,
It would match up exactly to where it is today.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Council Ricky Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Strong. Once again, Mark, thank you, sir. So if you come back in December with this same, the first sheet, then our debt service would be refunding these. Our debt service would be existing debt service would be $184,000 less.
Yes, sir. And I expect we would do better. If rates go up and down, perhaps it could be worse. But as I said, we have a comparable one that's at 182. We just got bids. That will be your decision, but I expect to do 184 or better.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any more questions? You don't have any more questions? This item ready for motion. Council Ricky Brown.
Again, thank you, Dr. Strong. At this time, I move that we approve item number 7 for Samco to go ahead and consideration or action to authorize Samco to proceed with refunding of certificates of obligation.
Thank you, sir. And Council Brand Weeds.
For a second.
We got a second, and please register your vote. Item number 7, unanimous approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Yes.
We'll work with
And
the
now
staff
we-
and get this done in
Yes.
December.
Thank you. And now we move to item number 8, Ms. Batchelor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It'll be a little bit easier on you now. This is amending the garage sale ordinance. Chief Phillips had brought it to my attention, there were some things that we needed to clarify. So this is amending the following: replace city secretary with city throughout, define previous 12-month period as calendar year January 1st through December 31st, remove sworn before a notary public from the application, replace sign with permit for posting at the property, remove refund portion since the sign and stake are no longer issued by the city, specify placement of permit on the residential front door, and attorney revisions to the denial and revocation of the permit. Again, this is first reading of the ordinance and the second reading will be at the next meeting on October the 28th.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And Council Mary Ann Hill.
Yes, I would like a clarification, please. If you look at section 62, 132B, number 2, where it says the property be sold at the garage sale is personal property that I own and that was neither acquired nor consigned for the purpose of resale. And when you go over on the next page and look at 62-134, number 2, it says new merchandise, no new merchandise acquired for resale. Those two things, I have a living example of that on my street, where you can tell that the people have gone out and it's not coming from their home. They don't have 2 dining room suites and several bedroom suites and living room suites to sell every 3 months, right? So they are purchasing these, whether they're at a resale shop or a flea market. I don't know where they're getting them, but they're not their personal use. And they're pulling them out, which would agree with the 132, but the 134, I think that word new kind of conflicts with 132B2. So I think new should be struck from that.
So just no merchandise acquired
Well-
for resale shall be permitted.
Well, you could use the same thing that you do, no acquired or consigned for resale. Because to me, new means that it's brand new. They bought it from the factory or, from a store, a legitimate storefront, not from a flea market. So, and I know that's not what's happening next door.
Okay, that'll just give more teeth for a code to be able to enforce those issues.
Right, exactly. And then, I wrote a note, but I think it got answered further down on 134. It's on the record that's kept about garage sales is under the address, not
Correct.
the name
Correct.
of the person,
It's per
right?
address.
Okay. Okay. I know that my neighbor does not constrict himself to 3 days. He goes 4, but again, that's a code issue. And then on the signs where you have it posted on the front door rather than at the street,
Well, previously, we had signs printed up with the wooden stake, permit $7. They got $2 back if they brought the sign and the stake back, so that was that refund policy. At this point, I don't have the staff or the means to be able to do that, so we issue an actual permit that's paper that they put on the front door. So it's still visible from the street.
well, sometimes in my neighborhood there are very large front yards, and you cannot. I mean, you could see a piece of white paper sticking up there, but you would have no idea what it said driving down the road. You'd have to literally get out and go up to the door to check it, almost to the door.
Right. You can still have the Ace Hardware signs out in the yard that says garage sale, or homemade sign in the yard. But as far as the city initiated sign, goes on the front door.
Those garage sale signs don't necessarily, well, maybe they do tell you the days that that it's open. Typically, they don't. So the permit is going to have the days that are allowed.
Correct.
Right. But the garage sale sign on the corner or in the front of the yard won't have the days that they're valid. And
Right. And sign ordinance only allows the garage or signs to be at the property where the sale is going on, not at the corner, not on the utility poles, all that.
Okay. And then I struck that question. Let's see. Okay, as I read through the permit revocation, it seemed to me like that really has no teeth or no impact, because by the time you realize that these people are not following whatever rule they're not following, and then you mail them a letter to say, oh, your permit's revoked because you didn't do this, the sale is over. I mean, what have you accomplished except waste time to write the letter and mail it out?
I understand. That was Wayne verbiage.
Well, tell Wayne he needs to relook at that.
Well, individuals if you have a permit, you do have a due process interest in that permit, so you do have to be given notice.
Now, when they fill out their application, there are some catches that we can deny the application, not issue
Right.
the permit.
Yeah, and that's legitimate, but
Right. So this is, like you said, after the fact, the revocation or denial
that's
future.
a waste of time. So having to mail out, I mean, why not issuing at the time, that would be the time to address it, because if after the sale has started and they violate it and you're going to revoke it, it's too late then. So that's kind of like a waste of time or effort to have that in an ordinance.
I think it's part of the due
think about it.
process. Yeah.
That's correct. Due process.
I lost. Okay, I got it. Okay, I'm through.
Thank you, and Council Thompson.
Okay, go back, and I know you just lightly, or you mentioned this when you were talking about signs being posted, because when you drive through town on every busy highway or busy intersection, there are yard signs. So what is the ordinance for that?
There is no provision for off-site signage. Those are illegal signs, and you will see code officers going by and removing them from the utility poles and from the corner intersections. You can only have it at the property, much like a real estate sign.
Right. And if they do post it in someone's yard, they need to ask permission?
Even
and
with
remove
permission,
it?
the ordinance doesn't allow for it.
Okay, okay. So people can remove the signs if they're in their yard. They have the freedom to do that,
Certainly.
with or without permission.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And, Miss Hillier?
I lost my train of thought going off on another train. I'll come back to it later.
Thank you. And let I ask you, a lot of people ask me with this one. What difference between the flea market, the garage sale, yard sale, and sale? Somebody put a sign says sale. Okay, for example, you can see several property along the Denton Highway. They put several items there, 4, 5, and they put a say sale every day. Is that violate
Yes.
the ordinance?
Yes, it does.
And I didn't see nobody come talk to them on Denton Highway. By the way, on the yard sale, when you issue the permit, it's just the garage sale, right?
Yes.
And because one of the organization, nonprofit, they say when I come ask for a flea market, they don't have that permit. And I
There-
said, I tell them, why don't you just apply for yard sale or garage sale, you know?
Right.
Is that the same,
Typically,
right?
A flea market is where you have multiple people setting up their goods on a property, and that's a totally different issue.
Yes, but if there are multiple people seller on the property, can they just ask for a garage sale?
Each individual that's having a sale, so you can have a block garage sale, and each address would
Have
get their
to
own
have
permit.
separate
Yes.
permit. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any more questions from council? You got the question you want? If you don't, I go ahead to let this item ready for motion. Mr. Brand Weiss.
Ordinance number
Oh, public hearing.
oh,
I'm sorry.
Never mind. Anybody want to talk?
Okay, sorry, my fault. And item number 8, the public hearing. I open public hearing 8:20. Is anyone in the audience would like to speak again this item number 8? I see none, so okay, Mr. Watkins. Go ahead, sir.
Still Mr. Watkins, still Haltom City. I've never in 40-something years had a garage sale, but this no consignment, but that would mean that if, for instance, I decided to have a garage sale, does that mean that my children couldn't have things there? What is the consignment part? That seemed a little unclear to me. I suppose they'd have to catch you, wouldn't they? Really, I mean.
Generally, consignment means that you're selling on behalf of someone else and taking a portion of those proceeds.
Okay.
So if you're charging your kids to sell their stuff for them, that would not be allowed. But if you just let them bring
might wanna
their
charge them
goods,
rent
that wouldn't
for-
be consignment.
It's more entirely possible that we may tote something over to one of their houses. I don't need all that in my yard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. And anyone else? At this time, I see none, so I go ahead and close the public hearing 8:22. Now, this item ready for motion. I believe Mr. Brand Weiss, Councilor Brand Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8, ordinance O-2019-028-01, amending the ordinance, chapter 62. Make a motion we approve on first reading.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Lynn Thompson?
Mayor, that would be for a second.
This, we already have second, so this item ready for judge. Your vote, please. Item number 8 with the votes of 5 and 1 against it, but it's passed. Now we go to item number 9. Ms. Bachelor again. Go ahead, ma'am.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm gonna bundle 9 and 10. How's that?
Yes, go ahead. 9, 10, the same.
All right,
one,
so
yes.
this is the preliminary and final plat for Jesus Murillo, for the property at 3048 Layton. He's creating one lot to build a brand-new residential house. It is on the SF2 single family. And if we'll look at the screen up here, this is the property. This is the final plat. Facing east and west from Layton, facing north and south from Layton. And if you have any questions, I'm available, but Mr. Murillo is also here, and I believe his builder.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
And
you.
Council, you have any question? No?
We will need 2 motions, though.
Okay. At this time, I will open public hearing at 8:24 on sports item number 9, P.012.19, and item number 10, P.013 and 19. Is anyone in the audience would like to speak against both items here? I see none, so I go ahead close the public hearing at 8:24 and 30 seconds. Go ahead, Council, you have any more question? You don't? Ms. Brand, you want to make a motion or you have question?
Quick question on notifications. I missed that. Notes in there. I just want to confirm, did we get any return since you put this together? Or any?
2 in favor, none opposed, none returned.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Brown? Okay, go ahead, sir, if no more question. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 9P-012-19 and go ahead and for item number 10P-013-19 that we approve one at a time, okay? Okay, for number 9 then, P-012-19 that we approve that for, what is that, the first reading, Glenna? On the first reading.
It's a plat. There's only one.
This a plot. No first reading.
Okay.
Okay. You done? Thank you. Ms. Brand Weiss, go ahead, sir.
For a second.
We got one in second, and go ahead, register your vote, please, Council. Okay, unanimous, approve both item number 9, number 10. Thank you so much. Now we move to item number 11. Oh, I thought we all moved together. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm rookie. Now, okay, Ms. Council Proud, go ahead, sir.
Again, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make a move that we approve item number 10 on the regular agenda, P-013-19, final plating.
Thank you. And Council Van Zandt?
Thank you, Mayor. That's for second.
We got the second. Please register your vote. Item number 10 unanimously passed, and now 11, Ms. Batchelor again.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Mayor, before we start, I need to move off the dais for 11 and 12 due to a conflict of interest.
Okay.
I've already filled out the paperwork.
Yes. We still have enough quorum? Okay. Oh, we have 6. Okay. Okay. Okay, go ahead, ma'am. Sorry.
Okay. Again, I'm going to bundle 11 and 12, but we will need separate motions. This is a preliminary and final plat for Haltom Middle School. What they're proposing is to build the new school over on the west side of the property along Fincher, and once that is constructed and occupied, then they will demolish the existing school, like they've done at O.H. Stowe and Academy at West Birdville. They're taking 5 platted lots and creating 1 lot. And if we look at the screen up here, this is the property. Again, this existing school is here on the east side of the property. Where the track is now will be the new school, so this will all be reconfigured, and this will be demolished once the new school is occupiable. This is the preliminary plat, the final plat. Facing south from Hires, facing north from Hadley, west from Friendly, and east from Fincher. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Council, you have any question on both 11 and 12? I see none, so at this time I will open the public hearing at 8:28 on both item 11 and 12. Is anyone in audience would like to speak again, both item 11 and 12? I see none, so I go ahead and close public hearing at 8:29. And at this time, we will make a motion for item 11. Council, Mayor Pro Tem Lynn Thompson.
Mayor, I would like to accept the preliminary plat P-017 or 017-19 for the Haltom Middle School addition.
Thank you, ma'am, and Council Susan Saul.
Thank you, Mary. That'll be for a second.
We got a second. Go ahead, register your vote, please. Okay, we got unanimous up. Go, Marion, did you vote? You keep look at me. Okay. Okay. We got unanimous approve item number 11. Now the item number 12 ready for motion. And Council Van Zandt, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we accept item number 12 P-018-19 for the Haltom Middle School addition.
Thank you, ma'am, and Council Lynn Thompson.
That would be for a second, Mayor.
We got a second. Please go ahead, register your vote, please. We got unanimous approve, and now I would like to invite Mr. Brand Ruiz come back for item number 13. Go ahead, Mr. Bachelor.
Thank you. This is the final plat for Colonial Park Addition, locally known as 4900 Anderson. If you recall, a few weeks ago we had a preliminary plat for the business park, and this is a portion of Colonial Park that's going to be an event center. On October the 8th, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended conditional approval. The franchise, utility, and zoning issues have been addressed. There is still some engineering. Our staff person was not available for review, and since P&Z was just last Tuesday and council is this Monday with the way the month falls, they didn't have time to address the engineering issues. So staff is recommending conditional approval of the plat. If you have any questions, I'm available. The property owner and contractor is also here.
What the owner intend to do with the property?
It's going to be an event center. An event center. Let's see if we have anything. So this is the property where it's going to be constructed. It's at the northwest corner of Glenview and Anderson. This is the layout of the property. This is a design of it with entry off of Anderson and Glenview, circular entry to the front of the building. This is facing northwest from Anderson and Glenview. And if you have any questions, the property owner is here to answer what he's constructing.
Council Thompson.
This one question will be for Glenna. In all the notifications that were mailed, you're showing that there was none opposed or none in favor or return to sender. Did that change?
Yeah, nothing.
Okay. I do have a question for the owner.
The owner, go ahead, state your name, please.
Yes, my name is Ben Pham.
Ben Pham.
Thank you, Mr. Pham. We're very excited about this event center. I wanted to ask is the number of people that you anticipate, the maximum number is how many?
Probably around 950.
950.
Up to 1,000 would be max, but I doubt it. It's we'll have to figure that out, but I think about 950.
And in this that you're proposing, how will we be handling the parking area for that?
Under code, I think we got 265, I believe, parking spaces. And so I think the code was like for every, how many people? 4 or 5? Or?
150. Yeah, we'll have to look and see, but we have exceeded.
Yeah, we've exceeded the number.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why it's at 950 rather than 1,000 or 1,002.
Okay, well, that would be a concern, but that seems to be a great location. As far as where it's situated, it should have good access both ways, so, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Councilor Brandwish.
Question for Glenna and maybe also the owner here. I know that when we send the notices out, it's for 200 feet of the property owners.
Correct.
I'm going to assume without measuring that didn't hit the Colonial Park residential area. Did we reach out to those people?
There's also a sign posted on the property, the Blue City sign.
Okay, that's all.
Notifying, and of course it goes in the Fort Worth Star Telegram.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
You have any question? Any more question? I see none. Thank you, Ms. Fab and ma'am. And at this time, I will open public hearing on item number 13 at 8:34. Anyone in audience would like to speak again this item number 13? I see none, so I go ahead close the public hearing at 8:34 and a half, maybe. And Council, you have any more question, Mr. Brandwish? You make a motion or you have question? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Item number 13, P-019-19, I make a motion that we approve.
Thank you, sir. And
hold on. What did I miss?
That's conditional approval
Oh,
pending
conditional
staff
approval
comments.
based on the engineering report.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me.
Thank you, sir. And Councilor Lynn Thompson?
That would be for a second, Mayor.
We have second, and now the ready for register your vote. Item number, Ms. Thompson, okay. Item number 13, unanimous approved. And thank you, everyone, on the, right now, city staff report. You have anything, Ms. Redfield? On Sedona? Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, Councilmember Hilliard requested some more information regarding our debt. And that is another reason why we asked, since Mark was going to be here for the refunding item as well, we asked him to go ahead and do a presentation during the workshop to offer some more information to all of you. But what I've done is I've compiled information you've received already, either during the budget process or as part of your budget book. So I'll just go through these 4 pages very briefly to tell you what they are. The first page gives you a list of the general obligations with the obligation type. The second page gives you just this budget fiscal year and what our debt service payments are for which series of budget type. On page 3, that's a list of all funds and our total debt service. You have a breakdown of the year, the principal, interest, and the total. And then on the last page, that'll give you the total debt service by the funding type, so which department it relates to. So hopefully this information's just a little bit more kind of compiled for you in one place to give you more information on the city debt. That's all I have, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
You have a question, Miss Marion Haley? I know you will.
I really don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you very much for putting this together. The page that tells us how the money was spent, not particular project, but the grouping, like the general and the EDC and the water and the drain, that's very helpful information to know how that money was used.
Sure.
So thank you very much. I know it took you quite a bit of time, especially at budget time.
I have good help.
Thank you.
Smiling. Any more questions from council? I see none, so thank you so much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Now we go to the future agenda item. Ms. Vincent, you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I actually have two things. One is, I would like to discuss when new businesses come to Haltom City, I would like to know if it's possible to have a sign erected on the property that gives what the business is, some kind of architectural rendering of the business, and a date of completion on that property. Ready for the second one?
You ready for second one?
Right. Yes. Okay. The second thing, Mr. Brown, if you'd help me and pass those down. We've heard it mentioned several times tonight about ordinances, and I am respectfully requesting that we review, as it's been mentioned several times, some of our ordinances, the actual value, the term bite has been used, or reinforcement of these ordinances. And I have in red, and I have some for the staff, the things that I'd like answered. And I just want to say that I'm not looking for fault from anyone. I am looking for solution. What can we do, number one, as a council, to give more value and credence to citations that are being given in the city? And I welcome staff input on that. I want to know if it's a lack of respect for the city, can we look for firmer penalties or better enforcements of codes that are already in place? And if it's just a blatant law dismissal, can another authority be involved? Number two, I'd like to know who are the worst repeat offenders in the city that are cited and not complying, either just continually paying the fine and being good for a season and then back in violation, or just ignoring them altogether. Number three, I'm also concerned about businesses that are being run out of homes and may even have buildings that have been built on the property and are not within code compliance or zoning, and they did not approach the city before building them. I'd like to know what our recourse is. Number four, several neighborhoods are having traffic issues because of multiple business vehicles being parked around homes in residential areas. The citizens, several of them have expressed to me that they're calling the city. They believe the city has done their due diligence. People are cited, and then they wait for a period of time, only return to parking the same place, and they're having traffic issues. They believe these issues are dangerous to children in the neighborhood, as well as frustrating to a flow of traffic narrowed to one lane with a blocked view of oncoming traffic. Number five, if I was looking as a prospective business owner at some of the empty buildings here, I would not want to occupy them or build by them based on the shabby appearance and upkeep of the buildings and lawns around them. My thinking is this would have to be a reflection on code reinforcement or the lack of respect for our city on those codes. Number six, the question is, how much is this costing the city annually for lawn maintenance or other services because of these violators that are not complying? I'm not talking about the regular salaries of code enforcement officers, and I do recognize that we're short, but it's already been mentioned in this meeting, even if we added 3 or 4, I doubt we could cover it all. But I'd like for that report to include the time invested by parks or city workers where they have to see these areas cleaned as part of the cost, as well as any outside contractual work. Number 7, this is my last one. How much total money is presently being collected in the current year for fines versus the total fines that have been billed or the fees that have been billed? So in other words, what's the actual cost and what's the percentage of recouping from these and those that don't pay that are delinquent? And I just believe that, especially for South Haltom, I think it's going to keep us from growing. And the goal for me is new businesses in this area, not just in the more recently developed areas. And I'm concerned, and I believe that we need to help code enforcement. And I'm open to either a staff workshop or a public events meeting. But for 2 decades, I've seen buildings that are not code compliant, especially on Denton Highway to Belknap. And I'd just like to know what we can do to help the city with those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benzen. Actually, the first item you want to put on the agenda, I think after I got elected, I already talked to staff. about we try to revise the ordinance on the business, that existing business and new business. But we have to comply with the state and federal law anyway. By the way, we want to help the vacant building to open business, so we have money, you know. For example, like we will waive some like variant on the like landscape. If we don't need landscape there, you know, leave them alone. We try to grandfather some of the old building, but have to have safety issue and electrical, plumbing, everything. That is a must. But for example, I saw several buildings, you know, after the many generation, the people doing business, they just like that. And certainly somebody jump in there, bought the building, they have to comply from A to Z. I think that's unfair for them. Well, we don't mean give them everything they want, no. Safety number one, okay? And I think we can do this one on the workshop with televised and let the people know our city is a friendly business town, you know? Because a lot of people before I got into council, me too, I'm really afraid of council here, you know? Every time I ask something, they say, we need architecture. Even I put 2 pieces of my fan, and one of the people here, you know, before, and asked me, I need your architect drawing. It's not funny, you know? As long as you know where is the water line, and you need to check with the city, I don't see something like that, you know? So, staff, I think we need to have the workshop together with planning, zoning, and Greg too, you know, water department, public work, to find out the best way we can help the existing business. Talking about a brand new business in town, yes, they have to comply from A to Z. But some other one, if we can waive, you know, some of the thing that too hard for them, but like I said, have to be a safety issue for the occupant and the patron anyway. You have anything to add on, Mr.
First of all, we've talked about a whole bunch of things here.
Yeah.
And these are separate issues, some of them. So it's going to take more than one workshop because we just never get to everything. And but there's kind of 2 different things from what you were stating and then also, Mayor, what you're stating. So one has to do with new business regulations and one has to do with code enforcement, although there's some overlap there, and I understand that. But we definitely need to have more than one workshop. I'd say a couple of them, so that we hit the things that you want to talk about, Mayor, and that what Councilwoman Van Zandt stated.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody understands this is a wide range that we're talking
you know,
about. Okay.
She have 2 issues with one with the building and one with code enforcement, but
Yes, sir.
we try to revise the ordinance we have current right now.
Well, what you're talking about, Mayor, has a lot to do with our current variance processes and things like that. So it's just 2 different meetings, and certainly they need to be talked about. It's just 2 different meetings.
I agree with you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And Ms. Marion Hill,
Yes.
what's your future agenda?
Yes, I have 2 items.
Okay. You ready? Go ahead.
One of them has to do with pavement management program. Councilmember Thompson and I attended TML session about their pavement management program, and we were so interested and impressed in what they had to say, but it made us wonder, okay, how does Haltom City manage their program and what tools do they use? In my previous term on council, I remember brand new, not knowing anything about anything. One of the things that came before us was to hire this agency to come in and assess our streets, which, you know, to me, I was like, what are we going to do when we get that information? Because at the time, whatever system we were using then, according to the director at that point, which wasn't you, indicated that there was not really an interface between the information that came from that assessment company into our maintenance program. and there was not a formal process of uploading and updating that information. So after seeing, there were 5 cities that did a presentation on this, and they talked about the systems that they use for street assessment and how that information was updated to the city, and how the city that could then do the reports to focus on what they needed to focus. So I don't expect something as detailed as what they gave us, but I am interested in now, since 8 years have passed, how does our city do their pavement management program? Good, good. Okay, the second one is, as mentioned by Mr. Watkins earlier, and while he was on council, he brought this up as well, and through the transition it got lost, but I firmly agree with him that plats, bringing plats is done by the P&Z first, and with the plat, we're not looking at what are they going to do. I mean, we hear about it, we ask those questions in P&Z, but it's not committing us to anything. A plat is just saying, I now own this property with these property lines, etc. And P&Z is perfectly capable of making that decision and eliminating council to have to do what we just did, breeze through real quickly an approval of preliminary plat and a final plat. So I would like for us to talk about or decide, or however we go about changing that process, and not having plats have to come to the council. Did I dumbfound everybody?
No, I feel like when you change a property plot, I think the council need to know. And for example, like Mr. Pham, I know we don't have to know what he doing in that property, but the main thing will have the council understand the future of our Haltom city, you know, investment, what they do, something like that. I think council need to look at this one. Yeah, I'm not against you, Marion, but the main thing, go ahead, Mr. Pham.
I'm just going to let the council know that that's coming up anyway pretty soon, because there's that ordinance has to be rewritten due to some new laws. So that's fixing to be addressed anyway. I just wanted you to know. So it will be on.
That's the ordinance, right?
Yes, sir. But it will.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some new laws about plating, but we'll address it at that time.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you for reminding us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more future agenda? I see none, so go ahead. We have the board commission, resignation of board committee and members. Anyone have any resignation? No? I see none, so go by appointment, reappointment, board and members. Mr. Brand Weiss, go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. I need to appoint Amanda Hughes to the library board.
Amanda, what name?
Hughes.
Hughes. Amanda, okay, Amanda Hughes for library board. Please ratio for a vote. Council unanimous approve. Ms. Hughes, Amanda, Ms. Hughes, okay. Now we go to accused absent of council member. We have council, no more, yeah. We have Council Walter Rowe, and anyone make a motion on that? He traveled to Houston for business. Council Thompson.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Walter Grove's absence tonight as excused.
Yeah, thank you, and go ahead, Russia, your vote, please. We need second?
There's your second.
Okay, Ms. Van Zandt, second.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Russia, your vote, and raise your hand if you say yes. Yeah. No nay. Unanimous approved. Thank you. We have no more we need to move to executive session. At this time, we reside to executive session at 8:51. and we will be back after that. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. On the Texas Government Code 551, Chapter 551.071 and .072 at 8452. Thank you, ma'am.